Perfect, yeah. Thank you very much for joining the panel discussion on ESG and IoT. We're very happy as the Things Industries to have our panelists here at the Things Conference today. We've been talking a lot about IoT, and we've been talking a lot about applications and solutions. And for us, it's very important to understand the context. Where do we deploy solutions? We want the actual user, the people who are applying it, to inform how the ecosystem is moving forward. Like, we need good product market fit in a nutshell. And we've invited these four panelists here today to talk about that. I will give them a second to introduce themselves. And yeah, please, if you could quickly introduce yourself and a little bit, what is the North Star? What's the vision around ESG for your particular organization? Like, just to give a bit of context. Do you want to start, Libo?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Lubo from MClimate. What we do is we make any building smart. We're a hardware and software company focusing on devices that can, turn dumb appliances and installations into smart ones, connected ones, and save energy, and also save CO2. Interesting statistic, buildings use 40% of the energy in the EU and contribute for 36% of the CO2. So it's a very good vertical to be in if you want to make some impact on CO2.
And in urban areas, it goes up to 80%.
Oh, wow.
And in the next 40 years, the number of square meters and buildings around the globe will double. That means that New York City will be added to the globe every month. We're a data aggregation company for utility consumption of commercial real estate, so gas, water, and electricity. So we provide the data for the E in ESG.
Yeah, Michael here. I work at ABN AMRO in our climate plan program. We want to be greenhouse gas net zero in 2030. And we want to help our clients to become net zero in 2050. And for that, we need a lot of data, IoT data.
Guido Meijenkamp, Santander. I head up the tech investment banking business for Santander globally. We want to support early stage companies raise financing, large companies do green bonds, and generally we have very strong commitment at the group level with both a dedicated ESG and a DSG. I'm part of the DSG Digital Solutions Group, part of Santander.
Awesome, thank you. Micha, you've heard Libo now opening with statistics. There's always a question, how did you raise the statistic? How do we get that data? I think you're the closest to the customers who are, you have to navigate how do you go to net zero. How do you do it at the moment? Like, let's say, pre-IoT?
Yeah, so that's quite difficult. You need an even balance between the total of the market. So you need to have some kind of a number. And currently for greenhouse gas emissions of buildings, but also a lot of other things, we just don't know the real data. So we take the energy label, multiply it by the amount of square meters that the building has, and that then is your greenhouse gas emission. But of course, that's not accurate, but everybody's using it, so you have a level playing field. But as we talked earlier about this, in the future, you really need to know how much greenhouse gas emissions you are having, because you get fined for it. You need to pay for your you need to compensate that. Yeah, and then you need accurate data, because otherwise, you're going to protest. So our customers need to know that. And that's something we then also need to know that, because we need to report on that by law for our stage 2 and 3 emissions.
All right, great. Xander, so customers would come to you to aggregate data. They are you help them collect sensor data and actually like translate that into these type of reports. Are they coming to you with that, I don't know, anxiety or requirements? They're like, look, we are actually afraid that we are going to be fined, that we're going to be taxed on it, so we want to be almost like preventative measure that we're investing now into it? Or what is the main motivation people approach you?
That is the exact motivation. It's a financial motivation, not a climate motivation. Motivation nonetheless. They are very worried. If you are having a revenue of 40 million or more than 500 people on the employee list, you already need to start filing your reports. And if you don't have the data, people will chase you. In the last 5 years, the number of climate claims, legal claims, doubled. And that's pre-CSDR. So in the upcoming years, it will more than double. If you don't have your numbers straight, you'll be fined.
And are we talking now about a Dutch, or is it an EU problem?
It's a
or
European, well, it's
EU
a European problem. But if you're not a European company, but you do want to do business here, you need to take this into account as well. And you see other regulations in other parts of the world as well. In New York, local law 97 asks for sustainability measures for commercial real estate. Local law 88 asks for sub-metering for the lights. That goes even further than we do here in Europe. Yeah.
Right. So it's a global extent, but the implications are most tangible at the moment. What we see here with actual claims against companies who are not, who don't have their data together.
Yeah.
Awesome, Guido. Alexander just mentioned that there was a climate push versus a financial push before that. Now it's being financial push. Do you see that in the motivation of companies who are innovating, who are coming up, who are trying to raise fund? Is that actually a movement which you also see, and how does it help now having more of a financial incentive for investing into innovations?
Well, there's I mean, I think it's sort of the key thing in my view is sort of create an alignment between value and reporting ultimately. And that's not easy because we're transitioning the economy to everything as a service offering, right? So even if you look at, who is responsible for the ownership of the asset, or or the REITs or whatever, who are the financiers or the operators, I mean, it's changing. The key thing is obviously sort of the collaboration and coming together. And I think the biggest incentives already are there, right? I mean, if you look at real estate with respect to retrofitting, right? That's maybe a $10 trillion opportunity, right, with respect to European Commission mandate. So I think first and foremost, you see clearly very large funding opportunities from governments, and I think we just have to support that as much as possible through collaboration and through understanding and sharing information and helping each other.
Yeah. Libo, you're in the field. You're doing the work of installing sensors, providing an actual solution to impact, in the end, the E and ESG. Do you see that? Like retrofitting was mentioned. Do you have to sell your services as OPEX versus CAPEX, or is this an upfront? Are your customers willing to, let's say, pay for the hardware as a capital and then like write that off, or is the retrofitting space very much that you have to frame it as an OPEX model?
No, we actually avoid the OPEX model, but it's interesting how retrofitting means different things in different countries. So one of our partners said, okay, in Germany, when we say retrofitting in a BMS industry, it means basically stripping down the entire building and just leaving the columns and redoing absolutely everything. To me, retrofitting should be something that is very easy to do. And there is an interesting caveat here. When you retrofit your buildings with devices that increase the energy efficiency, you're effectively increasing the value of the building. Not only in terms of, okay, that's CAPEX, but also, and by the way, that's already something that happens in New York. Almost every building, not absolutely every, but a lot of the buildings have an energy efficiency rating printed on an A4 sheet on the front of the building. And naturally, let's say a B-class building with comparable parameters as a C-class building is more expensive. So no, we actually promote that installing more energy efficient devices in your building or solutions, it's actually increasing the value of the building, and it's not that OPEX, but it's actually CAPEX.
Yeah, Xander, how do you see that? Do you have to rope in multiple shareholders into one initiative to bridge these two levels of expectations?
Yeah, we get a lot of demand for OPEX models, except if it's a new development, of course. What we do see is that everybody in the vertical needs to be able to touch this data, right? You got the institutional investor. They need to make their reporting on their carbon footprint. Then you got the asset manager. They need to be able to see their whole portfolio. And then you got the tenant and the facility manager. And they need this for predictive maintenance and well, maintenance in general. So some way, somehow, somebody is the owner of the data. But it doesn't make sense to do a sensor on top of a sensor and a cloud and a cloud and a cloud. Everybody needs to be able to access this.
So who should be owning the IoT solution?
That's a good question. It's it should be a shared thing, right? A shared incentive. And because of the push for regulations, it's becoming a shared incentive as well. Because everybody needs to work on their scope 1. And if everybody's scope 1 is perfect, then the scope 3 would be easy. But now it's very tough.
So you're nodding in agreement here.
Yeah.
Do you see, is then there like some sort of broker or agent who brings these different stakeholders together in such a solution? Like, how do we do that, right? Like, I have to sign contracts, I have to make hiring decisions, I have to invest into my infrastructure, and I have to probably do this upfront. I cannot tolerate an OPEX model as a young company, can I?
Yeah, no, that's difficult, and I think that's why. I mean, you know, as you said, I mean, I think there's a need for investment also at it's a lot of investment required at the early stage level, which is exactly what we're trying to promote. But I think I was more saying, I think I was more nodding to, I think if you look at the regulation, right, from, as I said, the retrofitting, but also if you see investment protection from the SFDR or these kind of regulation with respect to, need to report, but also, a benefit to report. In real estate, there's a clear correlation between value and ESG. I mean, that's been proven, I think, in many academic literature. So that's why you've seen, standards and bodies coming up like GRESP or LEED or, these kind of initiatives. Standards and creating standards is absolutely critical, right? I mean, and how you do that, it's not easy, but, the regulator is part of that, but also creating finance incentives is part of that as well.
Yes. And from an ABN perspective, do you give that demand into the group and let the ecosystem figure it out, or are you, let's say, more micromanaging on a level where you have partners and you introduce partners like a hardware partner to a network operations partner and then a data partner, and like you help stitch that together, or are you more interested in saying like, look, this is the demand we're having, please market provide me a solution?
Yeah, so basically from a whole bank perspective, that's of course it. On the other hand, we have our innovation department within ABN AMRO, and they have been looking at digital twin buildings, etc., for already quite some years, just to see how far that is and what a role you can play then as a bank in that area. That wasn't driven by ESG, that was already earlier. And that was then still in its in its infancy. But for us, the most important thing is that there's consensus on, okay, this is actually what you are emitting, what is your emission level at that building. The better you have that, also the better we can help in if measures need to be taken. Yeah, then we can play a role, of course, in financing that and doing something in that finance area with a different kind of loan, a transition loan, as we call it then. That is something where within the bank we have set apart quite a numerous amount of money to help our customers also, and not only say you have to be green, you have to go to net zero, but also we want to help you with that. And for now, the best thing we can do as a bank is, of course, lend you that money and not say, okay, and you have to have that partner to do the retrofitting, of course. That's not our playing field.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a luxury to just demand it and hope that it's offered. So but the need drives that you actually have to establish a little bit of a network to recommend people to know the people, but you would like to not do that, basically.
No, we also want it. It's in our ambition to go to net zero and to help everybody, all our customers, to achieve that. And we know that it is going to cost a lot of money. And yeah, well, that's something we as a bank can provide and also cater for.
And not doing it will cost a lot of money as well, right?
Yes, yeah, because we also, if a customer says, well, I'm not going to do anything, then by legislation at a certain point we have to say, well, we can't help you anymore then. So it's financed emissions, they need to go down, and those are on our balance sheet also, like someone just said. Yeah.
So since the 1st of January in the Netherlands, but you see same comparable things in other regions, you got a mandatory energy label C for office spaces. Most of them don't have a label yet. But since then, since the 1st of January up until July or something, the value dropped 20% for offices with C. G and lower dropped by 40% the value. So there's a clear need.
Can you walk me to one example case? What is we have to do it. What is an architecture in one project of how does it look like? What partners do you have in one project, and who is owning that? Like, are you being contracted and then you find the sub partners for it? Are you systems integrated now, or how does it work at the moment?
So we've got a partner network, let's say value-added resellers. They take our technology, they add the S and the G on top of that. And just an example, Patricia, big in residential, is a customer of ours. They got student houses, 200 student apartments per unit. And they use this data for the ESG reporting, but they also share it with the tenants who rent including the utility. So there's no financial incentive to change habits. But once you see it, the consumption went down by 9%.
Awesome. So they're value-added resellers. It's components which are being aggregated and then stitched together to an entire solution.
Yep.
Where do you see as the biggest potential? What do you wish from the IoT market there? How can we help to fill gaps? What is missing? What can we do more here as a Things conference, like ecosystem, basically?
Yeah, the need for low capex is very nice. So yeah.
So
more protocols, more communication distance, less hardware. Yeah.
So technical performance, basically. Less hardware means less capex. Means it's easier to package it up in an OPEX model. And then, okay, here we're quite dominated with LoRaWAN solutions here at the conference. So LoRaWAN is actually an interesting fit for you.
It is, yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
We can wrap it up here. Libo, do you see that there are? Do you see the same thing? Is LoRaWAN already like the most present technology here, or do you see different technologies competing when it comes to very specific problems?
Interesting question. I think the existing market just uses other technologies, and I think, honestly, that it's a great conference, it's a great market, but still we're just a small bubble of people. Sometimes, real estate owners don't need to know that something is one technology on the other or another. But I definitely see, on the inside how most of the solutions are actually based on LoRaWAN, because obviously cables are a no-go. They require an extensive renovation of buildings. If you want to put, let's say, smart thermostats with a cable, that's a big problem. But otherwise, honestly, I don't see any other kind of protocol and technology, breaking through, especially in the real estate sector. But then the real estate sector, you can approach it in 100 different ways, and not everybody knows what LoRaWAN is. Maybe they don't need to know. They actually need to know the advantages of the end solution, not the protocol itself.
That's an interesting observation from a LoRaWAN hardware manufacturer. I'm actually not talking about what powers my solution, I'm talking about the outcome. And I think it reflects also in the communication of partners here who talk more about solutions. We see less PCBs and antennas at the booth. It's more about, telling the story of what impact that can make. Guido, as an IoT ecosystem, how can we make it easier for you to find money for us and for the next steps there?
Well, as I said, I think it's about creating standards. I mean, protocols, less cost, less capex, lower infrastructure investment, more collaboration, easier setup, UX, all these kind of things. I think also I think more collaboration with vertical and contextual environments, right? I mean, agriculture has a very different environment than buildings, and even though they're both huge opportunities and huge problems, right? I mean, huge percentage of human-based gas emission comes from agriculture, and it's a huge opportunity, but it's a different value system. So it's a lot about experts. It's a lot about making the barriers as low as possible, and then being as smart as possible with respect to, as I said, this value alignment. I think the key thing is, in my view, is to align the incentives to I think the reporting and the outcomes. I think, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so it's a sense of having product leads within an ecosystem. Because I see here a lot of people throughout the last years where they were trying to diversify to capture more market by having parallel solutions. And now it gravitates more towards product leads. We need the best in one solution, and what you're saying, and with ESG and tax threats and legal threats, even new markets open or opportunities open. So there's always enough of a market for the best. And if we can be the best by focusing our efforts and then collaborating, what I think these 2 days here at the Things Conference were very much the topic of, and I'm very happy that we're gravitating to that notion. It's not even gravitating, it has always been around, but I think it has been more obvious now that this is actually the right way to go forward. And I'm glad that it also reflects in your perception from the outside. Great, we have a few more minutes left. Would like to open. Does from the audience anybody have a question to the panel? Like, would you want to ask anything? It's great. We're towards the end of the day. That's really good. Let's do a last round quickly. Maybe what have you learned now about the state of the technology providing and real solutions around ESG? And what can your immediate partners, what would you like from them what's the next step to actually make a big impact in making these solutions a little bit better? Libo, do you want to start?
Yeah, I want all of my suppliers to start reporting their emissions, so I can report mine as well. A hidden goal of MClimate is it's not official, we don't have a deadline, but we definitely want to have all of our products essentially net zero from when they exit the factory. We have a lot of hurdles to do this, but
Great. I think that's the headline for the next panel discussion of life cycle management and reporting of actual IoT solutions. Yeah, thank you for that input, Alexander.
Cool. This is my 5th stage this week. What I've learned this week, and it was all on ESG, but this is the first on the technology side, the rest was on the real estate side. So what I've learned is that both worlds are talking about this, right? It's not only technology saying we can do this because we can, and it's not only real estate saying we need to do this and where's the supply. The demand is here and the supply is here, and both worlds are talking about this. So I think we're heading in the right way.
Yeah, we just got to meet them.
Yeah, that's us.
Micha.
Yeah, well, here. And I've sat in a lot of talks this last 2 weeks, and I think Rienke in the beginning said it correctly. Yeah? It's time for you to collaborate and to do things together. I saw a lot of great solutions in the past 2 days where I was sitting in the audience and I thought, well, I just heard a talk about this thing, which was great, and now if you combine it with that, then all of a sudden your sensor will be much cheaper, and your capex and opex will go down, etc. So I think it's really time for to set the next step in growing up and step over the boundaries. I want to do it all and start collaborating because there's a huge market coming. We need that data in the coming years, and we need more data and accurate data. So. Golden mountains in the future.
I hear also. I think I totally agree. I think anything cross-silo is just, there's magic, right? And because we have so much already installed from a technological perspective, right? There's so many infrastructure, there's so many things, but bringing it together and looking at it from a holistic value chain perspective can be really incredibly powerful and incredibly impactful, which I think is true. But it requires, there's too many at the moment. There's still a multitude of data streams. The definition of the ESG is still changing. All these kind of things have to come together. And then I think just proper funding for the winners and ecosystem support, right? That I think is critical.
I think that's been great homework for us as an IoT and LP1 ecosystem. We will help each other to further specialize. We will do our work, and I hope we have some great results to report next year at the Things Conference 2024. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.